What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Fitz. I am the host of the Let's Argue podcast. And today we're going to be doing something interesting. I'm going to be doing a psychological analysis, sociological analysis of an Andrew Tate interview that he had with the psychologist. This is my area. This is what I actually went to school to study, psychology and mindset and things like that. And also, I am an accountability coach, a productivity coach. And so, this is my area of expertise. This is where I actually help clients increase the value of their time by really honing in on their goals, focusing on mindset, focusing on actionable, practical steps that can push you forward in life instead of keeping you back. So we're going to get into it. We are going to get into it. As you're making your way in, please hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you can get all the notifications when I'm posting or when I drop new content. All right, let me pull up the video. Okay, so here we go. All right. So just to give you a little background on this, for those of you who don't really keep up with Andrew Tate, he's been in previous interviews talking about how, he thinks psychologists are a waste of time, because especially for him, because he is somebody who does not operate as an average person, and the advice or the systems and mindsets that many psychologists push on people or are taught to practice, that they don't apply to him. And so he said in the past he sat down with psychologists and it was useless. And so he has it on camera now. And so I thought it'd be something interesting to kind of go over. So let's get into it.
And I thought it'd be an interesting conversation. A lot of people are asking me, especially, about my mental state and those kind of things post jail. So I thought, well, my most interesting podcast ever. People seem to be very interested in that side of me. So perhaps it can be a good conversation.
Does it make you nervous that there may be things that you don't know about yourself that I'm going to try to reveal to you?
I know everything about myself.
You know everything about yourself.
I believe that I have a intimate grasp of all the things about myself which matter, which allow me to compete.
Right.
So there may be things I don't know, but I'm not sure if I particularly need them. So I'm not that interested.
Okay.
Right. What's useful is more important.
So this right here is an interesting point where he says that the psychologist says, well, look, are you interested in uncovering things that you don't know about yourself? And Andrew Tate answers and says, look, I know everything about myself. And it seems like he was joking around, but what he was getting at was, Andrew Tate, there are things that I likely do not know about myself, but they serve no purpose for me. Now, why would he say that? Because he has a goal. He has a vision in mind. And the things that are important to him, he's chosen to focus on. And so there could be a million things that he doesn't know about himself or that are happening around him. But when you have a focus and a vision, you kind of tend to tune out all of the things that don't actually matter, right? Like, just think about yourself driving down the street. Now, you could sit there and try to focus on what's happening 3 blocks down, what's happening 4 blocks that way, what's happening 10 blocks behind me, right? All of these things could matter, But what's most important is what's happening directly in front of you, maybe a car or two behind, left or right. You stay focused on those things and you should be good when you're driving. I think the same applies in life when you're working towards goals and when you want to have a healthy mindset. Because what tends to happen, especially now when people, in my opinion, are overdiagnosed with anxiety, overdiagnosed with all of these mental disorders that really we weren't seeing 10, 20, 30 years ago. What tends to happen is there's so much information, there's so much choice available. People get overwhelmed. I don't even want to say they're focused on too many things. They're aware of too many things that they're not using. And then because of that, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to start. They don't have any foundation. They don't have any standard of where to go. And so him saying that pretty much like, look, there are things I don't know about myself, but they're not really useful. And if they're not useful, why am I going to pay attention to them? I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Right. You've developed a framework of thinking about yourself and thinking about reality that's been incredibly effective for you.
Completely. What's useful is more, you nailed it. What's useful is more important than what's true. This is an old argument of mine, but I think we discussed it in the last podcast, and I'll say it again. When I say I don't believe in depression, nobody can convince me to believe in depression. That's not a matter of discussing whether depression is real or not. That's a matter of me accepting that my mental model for going through life is more effective if I don't believe I can become a depressed person. I don't believe in depression, so I can't be depressed. So that allows me to be more effective. It's not a matter of sitting there going, well, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. I don't believe in it, so I can't catch it.
You shape.
So right here, this is what he says about depression. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, depression is real. I have depression. I suffer from depression, blah, 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 right? I'm not going to argue whether depression exists or not. Of course, I know that depression does exist. Here's what I want to highlight, right? And I think a lot of people miss this. When it comes to things like depression, or in my case, I like to use racism. I talk a lot about racism. I talk a lot about white supremacy. So let's use racism. There are people out there, right, who swear by Newton's first law of they swear by Einstein's theory of relativity. They swear by, the sky being blue, that racism is holding them back. And where did they get this idea from? Their environment, people around them, right? And so there are people that are convinced that they have racism working against them, and that's why they can't do what they need to do. And the same thing goes with depression. There are people who are convinced that because they have depression or because they feel depressed, that therefore they cannot achieve what they want to achieve, and that this is a permanent state, and that they have something that is holding them back. And I'm not saying that it can't be an obstacle. What I'm saying is your success is still your responsibility, whether you have depression, whether you're facing racism, all of these things, right? And so when I hear people who use racism as an excuse for why they are not where they want to be, then it makes me believe that they have found something to latch onto and to use as an excuse, as a placeholder for their real success. Oh, I didn't get the job because of racism. How many people do you think applied for that job? And the main ingredient of why you didn't get it is racism? I think you might not be suffering from racism. It might be ego, being self-centered. Because for you to live in a world and think that something worth having isn't worth competing over, and that you're operating in a vacuum, and that everything bad that happens to you is because of something like racism that you're not going to be able to nail down, that you're not going to be able to change, really, right? For you to think that and not apply any weight to actual things, actual tangible things that could be going on, you're living in delusion, right? You're living in delusion. So let's get back to it. And as you tune in, make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe.
Your own reality through the conviction of your thoughts, your beliefs, and the words that you use.
Why?
This is my favorite hat. I wear it all the time, and it's part of a collection that we sold our audience on YouTube using.
Why else would you adopt any kind of mindset unless it's designed specifically to make you competitive and make you win? You install the software in your mind, right? So if I'm going to install software in my mind, well, I've tried very hard to create it.
Right, because wasn't it installed by your upbringing? Wasn't it installed by your mother and your father in some way before you were conscious, while you were just a developing child? Like something got programmed into your psyche that has to have an impact on you. And those things can't necessarily be known because you were at such a young age.
Absolutely. We're all programmed to some degree. I agree with you on this so far. I don't think anybody can escape programming, whether it's society, whether it's television.
Okay, so let's read what Sarah's weight loss journey has to say. I wish Andrew Tate would stop trying to bull crap everybody. It's obvious that he's done some horrible stuff in his past. Maybe not what he's being accused of 100%, but he's nobody to idolize. Okay, so interesting. I would argue, one, that really you shouldn't idolize anybody, right? You shouldn't idolize anybody. And I don't think many of the people that follow Andrew Tate or watch him are necessarily idolizing him. I think what they're doing is saying he's living a lifestyle that I want to live, or he has a way of thinking that I think is useful for my life, and some of his principles, matter and they make sense. And I want to take what I can take, and the stuff I can't take, leave that on the table, right? And so it's interesting when I hear people say, he's guilty of something, or like Sarah's weight loss journey. I wish Andrew Tate would stop trying to bull crap everybody. Okay, what is he bull crapping? Do you know him personally? What is he bull crapping about? And it's obvious that he's done some horrible stuff in his past. How is it obvious, and what horrible stuff has he done in his past? And if it's so horrible, how come he hasn't been convicted? How come there's not really evidence? What has he done in his past? So I think before you throw out accusations about him doing horrible stuff in his past, I would actually challenge you to look at some of his more long form content and grapple with the ideas of what he's saying and formulate an idea based off of that. But thank you for the input, Sarah. All right. I think we missed it.
Whether it's the people around you, peer pressure, whether it's a religion, we're all programmed to some degree. I agree with you on this so far. I don't think anybody can escape programming, whether it's society, whether it's a television show, whether it's the people around you, peer pressure, whether it's a religion. We're all programmed to some degree. That's absolutely not really true. What I have done, and what I think most people do not do, is heavily analyze why I hold the beliefs I hold, why they help me. If I don't hold the beliefs,
so right here,
I didn't learn it from personal experience. I know where it came.
So what he talks about right here is interesting. Many people don't analyze why they hold the beliefs they have, right? They learn them from their parents. They learn them from school. They learn them from their aunties, uncles, friends, right? But if you actually sit back, and I talk about this when I go into racism and accountability, many Black people hold the belief that racism is holding them back. But if they sit back and analyze who gave them that idea, it's typically somebody who likely wasn't successful, who they didn't actually chase their dreams. They didn't write their goals down. They didn't do anything to really improve themselves. And now they're at a point in their life where it's easier to say that it was racism instead of saying they didn't make the most effective, efficient decisions that would push them to a path that would give them the success that they wanted, right? Because I'm convinced that many of the people who are not where they want to be in life are not where they want to be in life because they never thought about where they wanted to be in life, what they want to be doing, how much money they want to make, and what it would actually take to get there. Especially within the Black community, we have this crutch. We have this thing where when you don't achieve what you want to achieve, it must have been the white man. That's so destructive. That is destructive. Like anyone who's ever had a hint of success will tell you there was challenge along the way. But when you adopt the mindset of a culture that tells you there is no room for improvement, there is no room for self-analysis, that you don't need self-analysis when you're a part of the Black community because everything can be attributed to racism. How are you going to grow? You wouldn't operate like that if you were really trying to succeed. You see, when you're actually trying to succeed, you want to know what the problem is. You want to know more about yourself and who you are and how you respond to pressure and things like that. It's only the people who don't truly want to succeed that look for external things to blame. And so when he talks about self-analyzing and questioning where you got the ideas that and the beliefs that you live by, I think that's super important.
From who tried to teach me that, whether their intentions for me were good or bad. And I've tried very hard to have my mindset rigidly analyzed and make sure that it's put together in a way which benefits me completely and absolutely. And I do not believe in things that take away power from me. I refuse to do that. I would rather say that they are not real. And people will sit here and argue to the end of time that they are real, but they're not real in my world, and I live inside of my mind. So even if you throw me in a Romanian dungeon, the idea that I become a depressed person is not a framework that my mind works within. So I can't become depressed. I can feel a little bit sad. Sure, I can feel depressed, but I can't be depressed. They're very different things. So that's just a mindset I've installed, and it's allowed me to be competitive. And I believe, personally,
one thing, Snap Sports. Love this. Appreciate you guys very much.
My personal beliefs are that life as a man is hyper competitive, and whatever software you have in your mind should be designed to make you as competitive as possible.
Right.
And you shouldn't be believing in absolutely anything else. So I've tried very hard to make sure all of my world.
And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you have the power, which we do, to program yourself to think certain thoughts, to develop certain habits, why would you adopt the habits of a loser? Right? Why would you, if you can choose to wake up and say, I'm going to focus on X, Y, and Z, and X, Y, and Z have been shown to succeed, why would you choose to focus on things that aren't going to lead to success? And this is where people get upset with me, because when I tell you that you have complete control over what you focus on and what you put your energy on, people will say, well, I have bills and I have kids and I have this and I have that and I have a job and all of these other things. But the one thing they won't do is just focus on what they need to, because when you start focusing on what it is that's actually going to make you successful, when you create a definition of success, when you lay out a plan for getting it, when you follow that plan and self-reflect and adapt and change up what needs to be changed up, keep what needs to be kept, and move forward. When you do that over a certain amount of time, when you're focused and intentional on what you want, you don't have time for excuses. You're just like, okay, what's the problem? Boom. This is the problem. All right, solve that. Let's keep it pushing. You don't have time because you understand that you're only here for a limited amount of time. And the more time you waste, the less time you're going to have to be successful.
And all of my experiences and everything is created and aimed in a direction which is going to allow me to be a fierce competitor in all realms of human endeavor.
Mm-hmm. have there been some of your beliefs or convictions that have been challenged
Oh,
through the
sure.
experiences that you've had, particularly in the last, well, recently?
Well, people challenge me often. And what a lot of people don't understand is that I will never adopt the thinking of somebody who is sad, and I will never adopt the thinking of somebody who is less competitive than I am or less
Right.
successful than I am. If someone comes along and goes, Andrew, you are wrong, the way you see the world is wrong, but they are suffering from an affliction, why would I adopt a single iota of what they say? So
Exactly.
it's kind of funny when I talk about depression, the number of people who defend depression.
Mm-hmm.
Depression's ruined my life. It's super real, and I lost my wife, and my life is over, and I want to kill myself. It's real. Like, surely you should like my worldview. If depression's so terrible and it's destroyed your entire existence, you should be listening to me tell you it's not real. But instead, they're defending it and sticking up for it, which I find very interesting.
Right, and that's a great point. Why would you want to adopt the mindset of somebody that's not doing as well as you? Now, that doesn't mean that people who aren't doing as well as you, in my opinion, can't criticize you or offer suggestions, but it seems to go beyond that. It seems to come from a place of hate many times. Like, I can speak in my own personal life. The moment you start doing well, people say, oh, you switched up, you changed up, all of these negative things. They make jokes on your way up. And then when you reach where you're trying to go, the jokes stop and the envy starts and the hatred starts. So I completely get what he's saying.
So that's the first thing. In regards to whether I have had any of my convictions challenged, it's kind of amazing. Maybe it's just a semantics trick, and maybe it's that simple. Maybe it's as simple as saying, I feel a little bit depressed today, but I am not a depressed person, and I cannot become depressive. I'm not going to have depression. Maybe it's just a semantics trick. And by saying that alone, I understand that it's a temporary state of mind, which I can alter and I can affect. And I've never struggled with long-term depression or long-term negative thoughts because I don't believe in that mental model.
So if we go back to what I was saying earlier, then, and what I was saying earlier about racism and Black people adopting this mindset of, well, racism is holding me back. If you adopt the mindset that it's not holding you back, even if racism is affecting you and it's an obstacle in your life, do you think you're going to be better off by thinking that it's holding you back, or be better off thinking that it's not holding you back? Right? Like, what do you gain by actually sitting around and saying, this is holding me back, there's nothing I can do about it? I don't see what you gain. And I don't see it as a useful strategy to succeed. I really don't. And it's always been interesting to me. And I give this story when I speak. When I was in school, I can remember when the teacher would give out homework. Read page 21 through 30 and write a paragraph on it. Write 5 paragraphs on it before Wednesday. What would you hear? What? We got to read that much and write? Blah, blah. You start hearing complaining. And I would sit there and I would watch. And not one time did the assignment ever get changed. Not one time was it like, okay, y'all are complaining, don't do the homework then. Not once. And so what I took from that is, why am I going to sit around and complain about this? Right? Why am I going to sit around and complain about this when it's not going to help me? If complaining helped you and got you an A, I would understand that. If complaining about racism and saying things are racist actually helped you, I would understand. But it doesn't help you. It hinders you, because while you're focused on, well, it's racism or it's unfair, you could be focused on how to win. So there's a trade-off. Let's get back to it.
That your mind, like I said, is software. It's programmed in, and they say inside the matrix or in every single video game, there are boundaries and there are limits. There are certain things you can and can't do. And I don't believe my mind can be put in a state of permanent negativity. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's possible. So
do not go to fabbuddies.com. Do not take our.
All right, let me don't want to give
prison, what were the thoughts that were coming up? What was happening?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty, which is the first thing
That has to be scary.
it is scary. It's scary.
And also because you're a man who's totally in
Mhm.
control of your world, of your life. And that's almost like an imperative for you. And that gives you power. And all of a sudden you're thrust into a situation where you're
Right.
essentially helpless.
Well, you just nailed it. You completely nailed it, because I was exactly about to say it's the uncertainty that I struggle with the most, because in my life I'm in charge of everything. I know
Right.
exactly how everything works, and I'm the boss, and I get to control absolutely everything. And this is the first time in a long time I'm in a scenario where I have no power whatsoever,
Yeah.
no influence, basically.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody else knows what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And also in my world, I'm the hero, right? I'm the head of the group.
So I think this is an important point. Are you the hero in your worldview? See, when you're not the hero in your worldview, it's on somebody else. And one thing that he talks about that I found was interesting, where he talks about the nerve-wracking part was the uncertainty of not knowing what's going to happen to you. And living as a Black man, I can understand that to a point, because we're taught from a young age, you don't know when you're going to get pulled over by the cops and get shot. You don't know when you're going to get a racist boss. You don't know when someone's just not going to like you because of the color of your skin. And we're taught that there's all of these things out there that we cannot control, that can destroy our lives at any moment. And then reality hits and you actually start living your life. And when you sit back and do that self-reflection, you say, well, on a day-to-day, there's really nothing that racism is stopping me from doing, when you actually analyze the situation. And I think many people get caught up in the idea that they've cemented in their brain around issues. And then when they compare it to their reality and they see it's not as bad, it's not as harmful, it's not actually holding you back, there's some confusion, because you've been focusing on this instead of what's actually going to improve your life. And now you don't know how to proceed. So it's interesting. It's interesting. But I'm going to fast forward and get to a different part. So I'm jumping forward now.
But when I fight, yesterday I was fighting, right? We were doing 12 rounds and all of us were destroyed. And the more he hurt me, the more I wanted to hurt him back. The more he hurt me, the better it felt. The more powerful I felt, the more he hit me, because then it's my turn, right? So if I can't stop him from punching me, and I'll do my best, but if I can't, then surely you should learn to enjoy it, right? And I don't think you can stop life from hitting you. And I don't think you can stop life from giving you unexpected surprises. And I don't think you can stop yourself from feeling sometimes sad or anxious or upset. So I think the best mindset you could adopt is finding that engaging and exciting.
Right.
I'm not going to lie to you. Although I am facing very serious charges, and although they are
that's all you have to. That's all you can do.
And although they're out to get me, and although I've suffered, part of me is excited. Part of me is like, okay,
Why?
because it's a war.
You like war.
I think all men do.
They do.
Yeah, of course, all men do. So it's about.
So this is an interesting point, because I can relate to what he's saying right here. When your back's against the wall, you don't know what's going to happen, and there's a part of you where you know that there are things you can't control, but the fight is getting real now, and that can be exciting. That can be like, okay, here we go, right? And I think this is the precipice of where so many people drop off, because they see the fight and they get afraid, right? They get afraid. They don't know what's going to happen, and they run from the fight. And by running from the fight, all you're actually doing is prolonging the inevitable. And then when the inevitable happens, you're not ready. You're not ready. So it's important that you don't run from those fights. It's important that you stand up for yourself, and that you make sure that you're in a position to win, right? life is going to hit you. And if you don't learn to hit life back, you're going to lose. It's as simple as that.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I'm not saying I'm glad it happened, because I'm certainly not. And I'm not saying I'm going to win. But I'm saying that I've trained myself to the point where if I were walking down the street and 10 men were to pull knives on me, I'd be intimidated. But 20% of me would go, this is going to be one to remember.
Do you have a belief that you could take 10 men with knives?
I have a belief that, yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's delusional.
That's delusional.
Yeah, but it gives me a best chance of possibly winning.
No, running away would give you the best chance of
course.
possibly
I'm
winning,
not-
and then coming back and being safe, and then serving out your mission.
Of course, I would run away in that scenario. But if I had to engage them, if I had to engage them,
Right.
if I had to fight them, I believe I'd be the most capable if I believed I could win.
Of course.
So for that reason, if I have to self-delude, then I will self-delude, and I will convince myself that I am here to destroy all 10 of them. And I will say it in a way where at least 7 of them believe me. And that's the most important part sometimes about all of this self-delusion, is that a lot of other people start to believe what you say. And I'm not saying...
Right. And this is an important point. This is an important point. What is he saying? Right? He's saying in a situation where you are faced with the uncertainty, you are faced with an impossible situation where you don't know if you can win, that if you believe you can win, that's better than not believing you can win. And by doing that, you increase the chances that you can actually win. So I'll rewind it so that we can actually see what he's saying right here. And let me know if you guys can hear this.
I have a belief that, yeah, I do.
So
20% of me, and I'm not saying I'm going to win, but I'm saying that I've trained myself to the point where if I were walking down the street and 10 men were to pull knives on me, I'd be intimidated. But 20% of me would go, this is going to be one to remember.
mm-hmm.
Do you have a belief that you could take 10 men with knives?
I have a belief that, yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's delusional.
That's delusional.
Yeah, but it gives me a best chance of possibly winning.
Right.
No, running away would give you the best chance
Of
of
course.
possibly
I'm
winning,
not-
and then coming back and being safe, and then serving out your mission.
Of course, I would run away in that scenario. But if I had to engage them, if I had to engage them,
Right.
if I had to fight them, I believe I'd be the most capable if I believed I could win.
Of course.
Right.
So for that reason, if I have to self-delude, then I will self-delude, and I will convince myself that I am here to destroy all 10 of them. And I will say it in a way where at least 7 of them believe me. And that's the most important part sometimes about all of this self-delusion, is that a lot of other people start to believe what you say. And I'm not saying that I say bad things. If a man...
Right. And I think when we're talking about self-confidence and we're talking about what it is that's truly holding people back, they haven't told themselves that they can actually win. They haven't told themselves that what it is they're trying to achieve is possible for them. So then when they go out in the world and they're telling other people and they're trying to convince people to do business with them, or they're trying to get a job, they're trying to do whatever they're trying to do in their realm of success or whatever that looks like, nobody believes you. And when nobody believes you, it can be hard for you to continue to say it to yourself, because oftentimes we get validation from other people. We get validation from other people. And so it's very important that you're able to convince yourself that you can actually win at whatever it is you're trying to win at. If you can't convince yourself that you can win, how are you ever going to muster up the motivation or the discipline and build the habits that are going to put you in the position to win? It just doesn't seem like it would happen. So here we go.
Sit in front of you and say, I can rip your head off with my little finger. And he said it in the right terms, and he truly believed it in his heart. You wouldn't want him to try. As ridiculous as that sounds, you'd be like, kind of big, maybe. It crosses your mind. So I think that, yeah, I have psychoanalyzed myself, even though I'm not officially, certified. And I've decided that I can't stop bad things from happening to me. So instead, I'm going to enjoy bad things happening to me. And I'm going to build a mindset that makes me fearsome enough to succeed regardless of how stacked the odds are against me.
Yeah. And, and I appreciate your mindset, and it's well thought out, and it's useful to you. And so I'm just pushing up against the place.
And this is what I don't think many people realize. When you're out competing in the world, when you're competing for your success, when you're competing for whatever it is that you want, if you don't actually believe you can win and you don't have the mindset to do it, you're not going to do it. So when Andrew Tate's talking to the psychologist and he's breaking down his mindset and how he's curated it to reach a certain level of success, and that even if bad things happen to him, his mindset is at a place to where he's okay with that and he's going to attack and do what he has to do anyways. I think that that's a positive message. I think that that's something more people need. All right, so let's get back into it.
I think there might be contradictions.
I like to hear it.
Yeah.
I like to hear it. But like I said right now, I'm not a coward. And I want to make this very clear. I'm not a coward. I don't care if I don't sleep again for the rest of my life. I refuse to take any fucking pill, and I refuse to sit and have my mind altered by anything I do not control. I don't care if I have nightmares for the rest of human time.
Right.
As long as I'm in charge of my mind, I'm in charge of my life. If God decides that I don't need nightmares anymore, I'll fathom out how to stop it. If God decides I need to wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat, fearful or afraid they're coming to get me, then that's God's plan for me, and that's what I'm going to deal with. I'm not a coward. I'm not afraid of any of these things. I'm not afraid of feeling bad. I'm not afraid of anxiety. I'm not afraid of panic. This is one of the things I think a lot of men out there struggle with, is they're so worried and afraid of bad feelings. And to me, that's just showing that you've had an easy life. Like, there's real people out here who are trying to kill you. There's people out here who put a knife in your neck. You're scared of what? Feeling sad? Who cares? Like, there's real problems. What are you worried about feeling sad for? Who gives a shit? I could feel.
And so I've read the comments when he says similar things to this about who cares if you feel bad. And I've heard people say, well, you know, that's insensitive. When people feel sad, you should care. And I don't think that it's that when you feel sad, people don't care. I think that at a certain point, it's just like, okay, what are you going to do about it now? Like, you can only have a sob story for so long before nobody cares or nobody's willing to engage or invest in it, because you're not willing to help yourself. If you're not willing to help yourself, people tend to stop caring. That's just the truth. All right, so I'm going to fast forward it. So we're at about an hour now.
Being an NFL fan.
Here we go.
The idea of right and wrong. I like the idea of not having a choice. If you walk in, if you're hungry and you walk in to buy a sandwich and there's 100 sandwiches, it takes 10 minutes. If there's one sandwich, isn't life easier sometimes?
Yeah.
So all this subjectiveness and all this choice and all this garbage, sometimes when I'm like, okay, I want to be a good person, I want a framework to adhere to that makes me a good person. Well, this is very clear. Yes, no, easy.
Do you have like embodied experiences of God? Like, do you relate to God in that way? You know, I want to say supernatural, but like, do you feel God?
I absolutely feel it.
Drop a
There's
1 in the
certain
comment
times where
section if you can hear.
I may feel particularly energetic.
When do you feel God?
So usually when I'm feeling powerful.
Uh-huh.
There's been times I was in jail and I just got up and just felt like, you know what, yeah, like just shadow boxed a bit. I don't know. It's like you just felt it. Like I'll be okay. I will win. I don't feel God when I'm sad or something like that. I think that the whole idea of spirituality, and I believe God himself, he wants the best for you. And
Right.
It's interesting, yeah, how we're tying religion to my worldviews, because my worldviews were the same before religion. I guess before it was.
So one of the things that I think is important when watching this interview is to understand that the psychologist is coming in from the perspective, I think, of trying to get Andrew Tate to believe that psychotherapy or psychoanalysis works, because in previous interviews Andrew Tate has said he doesn't believe that it works on him because these psychologists are average people and some of the other stuff that he said. So I don't think that would necessarily exist in a traditional client psychologist relationship. So that's one thing to keep in mind as we're watching this. All right, I'm going to fast forward it a little bit. Here we go.
If I fail for the first time in human history, then I failed. But at least I get the satisfaction in my heart of knowing I actually really tried my best. Most people don't get to get that satisfaction because they know deep down they could have tried a bit harder. Whereas if I end up in jail, I'll be like, Andrew, you did everything you could have done. So that gives you a level of peace. I did my best. My ancestors are proud of me. God is proud of me. I did my absolute best. I couldn't have possibly done better. And I got hit with a lucky punch, and that's life. And all I can do is just smile regardless.
Are your oration skills, is that an art, do you think?
I think that if you don't have the ability to make other people understand exactly what you think, that you're going to struggle.
But is it an art? Like when I watched you with PBD, you got in these zones, and you do it all the time, and you're doing it right now. You get in these zones where it's just like you're just flowing. I mean, it's almost, you can say it's a God state, right? It's a flow state, and it must feel really good.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
It feels good that you're never
So
around
let's
things.
go.
Hyper successful as a person, you have to be very careful to avoid the happy hole, because happy is what everyone thinks they would choose. If you had this emotional energy and could choose any emotion, you'd choose happy. But if you choose happy, you don't get much done.
What do you choose?
I choose, if I had to choose how I wanted to feel all the time, I would choose proud. And proud means you have to work. Proud means you have to do things. You have to achieve things. If you want to be proud and be realistic, you have to do fantastic.
And this is an important point that I don't think we talk about much in society, definitely not enough in society, is this feeling of happiness. Whenever somebody talks about, especially in relationships, oh, I want to be happy, happiness, 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 I just want to be a happy person. Understand that happiness is just an emotion, and emotions are fleeting. They're temporary states. They're not something that I think people should actually be striving for in terms of a permanent feeling or anything like that, because they can ebb and flow. They here today, gone tomorrow. And one thing that he talks about in this interview is whether he's feeling happy or sad, he still gets the same work done. The work still gets done. And I think many people attach their activities throughout the day to whether they're feeling happy or sad. Or, I said I was going to go to the gym. I feel like crap now, so I'm not going to go. Right? That's a bad mindset when you're actually trying to achieve success. Because when you're trying to achieve success, the work still has to get done. There still has to be a certain level of consistency. There still has to be a certain level of discipline. And when you don't have that discipline, when you're not consistent, then that's when you're going to lose. And when you consistently lose and lose and lose, well, now you don't want to try anymore. And there goes your happiness. But if all you're seeking is happiness, then it's going to be very hard for you to get to where you want to be at, because the moment you don't feel happy, that's the moment the work stops. So don't attach happiness to whether you're doing the work or not doing the work. It's a bad strategy for success. All right. Let's keep it pushing.
So my default favorite emotion is proud.
Right.
That's how I'm happiest when I feel proud about anything.
Well, and the organism releases dopamine in the brain, and we do hard work.
I have to win all the time. I love proud. To feel good. I don't like happy. If I feel happy, giddish happiness like a child, or like a females usually default to happy. They don't care how they get there. They just want to get there. Right. They just want to feel happy. I avoid the happy hole because I think people who are desperate to only feel happy are the ones who are addicts, you know, gambling addicts, drug addicts.
What do y'all think
too
about
much,
this?
Do dumb
Is
shit.
this
It's all
true?
temporary, no delayed gratification. That's how you destroy your life choosing the happy hole. So we were talking earlier about jail and how when I felt particularly bad, I'd wake up with a whole bunch of emotional energy.
Okay. So what do y'all think about this? Is this true? If you're in the chat or you're watching live or you're watching on replay, I want you to comment right now. Is happiness something that you should just ignore and focus more on being proud? What do you think? Is happiness a hole? Does it create a hole? And does it actually prevent you from getting what you need to get done? Is it for children? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. What do you think about happiness? Is it something that you should strive for, or should you be striving for something else? Let's see. I'll replay what he said.
I feel happy. I avoid the happy hole because I think people who are desperate to only feel happy are the ones who are addicts, you know, gambling addicts, drug addicts, drink too much, do dumb shit. It's all temporary, no delayed gratification. That's how you destroy your life choosing the happy hole. So we're talking.
Will happiness destroy your life? Right, that's the question. Will happiness destroy your life? It depends, honestly. I think it depends on what you're attaching to the happiness. Is everything about being happy? Like I see these relationship things online where people are saying, well, I left the relationship because I just wasn't happy. I just wasn't happy anymore. Well, if the goal is to be happy all the time, what in life is going to give you that? Even if you look at people with children, they'll say like, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad. Do you just disown your children anytime you're sad? Anytime they make you sad? No. It's like you have to find something more stable than happiness. So I completely agree with that. If you're only focused on happiness, then you don't have a realistic goalpost. If you're only focused on happiness, you don't have a realistic goal.
About jail and how when I felt particularly bad, I'd wake up with a whole bunch of emotional energy. It's unchanneled. It's a bit wild. So I guess that can be perceived as sad or depressed. You're out of your routine. So I would sit and go, okay, I have all this emotional energy today. Where am I going to put it? And I'd put it in a place where perhaps on that day I might feel happy, or perhaps I'd choose something else, but I would try my very best to take all the energy and put it into a place where feeling that emotion was the most competitive emotion, or was the perfect.
That's how much we made the
Channeling your happiness or energy to what needs to be done.
The perfect emotion for me to be as competitive as possible in that particular scenario. So yeah, on days where I woke up and I felt a little bit sad, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to turn the charm on today. I'm going to make everybody laugh. Right. And by the end of the day, I felt fantastic.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward.
If God wants to break me, he's going to do it.
Would you not want to give them more?
I may want to. I don't. And then you're not a man. It's you have to.
They wanted more love, more connection, just more time.
Argue I had the best father on earth.
So he gets into
I never for a
or
he gets into a conversation about his dad.
He wasn't present. That must have been.
If someone were to say to me, Andrew, you're going to enjoy the moment less because you're constantly preoccupied with running an empire. How can I be present? I've got things happening in my brain. I can't be present. I've got things to deal with. I've got problems. So I've sacrificed.
Or maybe you have a mental model that says I can't be all the way present and do all of those things, and maybe that model is incorrect.
Well, presence is if you're truly present, then you're not worried about anything outside of the moment you're in.
Not necessarily.
How does that work? I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, because the presence, right? You can let your consciousness go out, right? And you can be aware of everything, right?
I'm perspicacious is one of my favorite words. I am aware of what's happening. Yeah. I'm just not particularly interested in it.
Mm.
So I will sit at a table where everyone's having a conversation, and I'll sit on my laptop and I'll chime up once every hour. I hear every word. I've analyzed every word. I know who's right. I know who's wrong. I know what I could have said. I know whose brain I could have changed, what mind I could have affected. I've already considered if it's worth doing, but I'd rather do my work, and I'll ignore it all until I pop up and say 3 words and control the entire conversation and go back to my laptop. I'm aware of everything. I'm just not particularly present because I feel like I've built a life which is so large that it's hard for me to be present in the moment. I'm present with my children.
See, and one of the themes that I'm picking up that he's talking about is focusing on what actually matters to you, right? Focus on what actually matters to you and curate your mindset for that. I don't think there is a one size fits all mindset. I really don't. I think in order for you to have the best mindset possible for your life, you truly have to know what you want. And if you don't know what you want, then it's easy to start adopting other people's mindsets. It's easy to start getting into things that don't really matter to you and waste your time. It's easy to do those things. So I think he's 100%, correct when he's talking about, you can be present without particularly being interested. All right.
Hour or two, and then it's like, okay, back to work. So
Was your father present with you?
no, but I don't think. But then this again,
I'm just saying, as a psychotherapist, when somebody said that, you said that he wasn't present with you. That must have been.
that didn't bother me at all.
It didn't bother you?
No, he had things to do. He's a full-grown man.
I mean, we could talk about the haircut tweet, but I didn't understand, your history that you were raised by a single mother. Your father wasn't around.
Yeah.
Mm.
You see him once a year.
About that, yeah. When we lived in America up to the age of 11, I saw him more often, once or twice a month, maybe. And then
When did it split?
I was 10 when they left. But I always understood he's very busy and has a lot to do. So I never.
Did
didn't
you see
expect
how the
it.
boy might interpret that as my father doesn't care about me? No. You can see how I understand you sitting here right now, but you understand
Right.
like a little boy
I think a little boy,
might think,
A little-
where's daddy? I want daddy. I'm here alone with mom.
and he might be right because some fathers may not care. But my father did care.
Right.
He was just very busy.
But it must be
Mm.
confusing for you. Not for the little boy?
No.
Like bring.
I'm being honest. I'm being honest. It wasn't.
Okay.
I never for a
Or you cut off, or those feelings were so painful.
And see, this is an interesting point of the conversation because I see so many adults blaming their parents, putting their life that isn't successful on their parents. My parents didn't spend enough time with me. My parents didn't tell me they love me. My parents didn't do this. My parents didn't do that. They weren't around, right? I think that there's room to critically analyze your parents and say, what would I do right? What would I do wrong? But at the end of the day, how is it helping you? How is it actually helping you? Right? Just reading a couple things. How is it actually helping you? Because one of the things that I find interesting, especially when it comes to the Black community, is when we talk about single motherhood. When it comes to motherhood, apologize, just reading some work stuff. So when we talk about single motherhood, I hear so many people talking about how, well, I only had a single mom, I didn't have a dad, all these things, right? And I get it. There are negative consequences that come from that lifestyle. But if you're aware enough to know that, then I think you should be aware enough to change it. It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. So I don't believe that you can be aware of something, but also not be in a position to change it. I don't believe that that's possible, or do something that's working towards changing it. See, many people have this twisted idea that awareness operates in a vacuum. See, when you're aware of something, that means that you have a choice to change it or work towards changing it or not. The saying ignorance is bliss is powerful, because sometimes you being ignorant of something could be better for you, because then at least you don't have to have the knowledge that you could have done something. And there are a lot of people who get into their 60s and 70s and they really start doing the self-analyzing that they should have done in their 20s and 30s and 40s and even 50s. And they realize, yo, it might be too late. I have so much regret. And this happens because when you choose to ignore the things that you are aware of, that you know you need to do, that you know you need to change, you're only harming yourself and the people who care and love about you, who depend on you. All right, let's get back to it.
You cut off from them so quickly and then created this mindset to deal with.
I never for a second felt like he didn't care about me, ever.
Talking about his dad.
I never felt that. It didn't cross my mind.
Like consciously.
Consciously.
But is it possible that unconsciously you might have a different belief?
Son.
And that on some level, some of what you're doing in the world is motivated by that, like wanting to win the love of your father?
I think that is semi-true, but I'll tell you, I think that's
fine.
No. That's semi-true. That's semi-true because I believe I have a duty to my ancestors. I don't think it's coming from a place of I'm broken trying to fix myself. I think I have the last name Tate. It was bestowed upon me, and I have responsibilities to live up to the last name Tate.
Yeah.
I do believe I have a duty to my ancestors. So is that trying to win the love of my father? Perhaps. I never felt unloved by my father, ever.
These are the highest quality leather.
On earth. I never felt like I was owed all of his time. It was very clear to me at a young age that he's extremely busy and extremely important, and that I can earn his time, or that I can't have as much of it as I want.
You have to earn his time? That was a son should have to earn his father's time?
Yeah, why not?
Because he's a boy.
True.
And
So
the
I
father's love should be,
No.
at least for a boy, unconditional in some way.
Love and time are not necessarily the same thing. If I told my father, I want to play chess, I want you to teach me chess, he could find 2 hours. If I said to Dad, I want to play video games, or let's watch TV together, he'd say, no, son, I don't think so. So
Right, and this is important, because I know that this is going to be a point of contention for people, that your children should have to earn your time, right? But understand the mindset of someone who's successful. When you're successful and you have a vision, you have a goal in mind, you have somewhere that you're trying to be, you're trying to create a lifestyle for yourself and for your family. You every moment counts. You have a different value when it comes to time. And so if your children are in a position, or they're doing certain things to where they're not working towards something, you may not even be able to relate to them. But honestly, we have to think of it realistically. Time is valuable. And if you have children that aren't really working towards anything, they just want you to sit around and play with them, Okay, but what quality of life are they going to have if they just want you to sit around and play with them, right? I'm totally on board with this idea that at a certain point, your children need to be working towards certain things, that your time, the most valuable time you can spend with them, is honing skills, honing mindsets, honing development, critically thinking, critically analyzing the world, asking them questions, preparing them for life, right? That's what quality time is. Quality time is not just, oh, we're out at Chuck E. Cheese, right? Like, I think there's time for that. I think there's time to have fun and just chill and relax with your children. But I can totally understand where on a regular basis, you're more inclined to help or spend time with a child if they're working towards something, especially if your time is limited already, right? Especially if your time is limited already. Because here's the thing, just because you have children doesn't mean that your whole mindset changes around work ethic and things like that. You're still that beast. You're still that animal that wants to succeed. So you may not even know how to just turn the gear down and relax and do all the things maybe that someone that has more time would be able to do with their child. So I think that's an interesting point.
I during his time. His time is valuable and cannot be wasted. I feel like I have a duty to my ancestors. I don't feel like, and when I'm in jail, I feel like I can't disappoint him. And I feel like I do good for the world. I don't think this is me being some kind of broken secret. This is where we're going to disagree. You're going to think I'm some broken child inside or something. Okay. Well, the inner child, or I'm guessing, but
yes, inner child.
Okay, I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think it's duty. I think I have duty, and I'm on it.
Yeah, I understand your duty as a man, but that doesn't mean the inner child is not there. And I guess that's if the inner child has been disowned in some way, or his feelings have been relegated to the unconscious, like that's impacting you, that's affecting you, and knowing what those feelings are and how they impact you, I think, would be important information for you.
But I was never sad. I can't say I had a hard childhood. I can't say I was sad.
What are you guys' thoughts on this? Should children have to earn their parents' time?
Let me psychoanalyze myself. Yeah. Once again, this might be rationale. I might be rationalizing. Yes. I might say, well, whatever happened made me.
Right. I want to know what you guys think about this. If you're a parent, or you're thinking about being a parent or whatever, or you just want to add some input, should a child have to earn their parents' time? Right? Should a child have to earn their parents' time? If you're a successful person and you have children, or you're working towards something and you have goals, right? Does it make you a bad parent if you don't just turn that off and hang out with your children just to hang out with them? Like, should your child have to earn your time or not? So this is what Andrew Tate is saying. He pretty much had to earn his time with his father. If he wanted to spend time with his dad, he had to earn it. He had to be working on something. He had to be doing something that his dad thought was productive. Do you think that that's a healthy way to raise a child? I want to know. Do you think that you should have to earn your time with your parents? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the live chat, because I get it. I can get it from a certain perspective. If you're a parent and you have limited time, would you rather your kid be doing something productive when you're spending time with them, you're teaching them something, or would you rather just be goofing off with your child, especially because you don't have as much time to give them because you're working on other things?
Person I am today, and I love who I am today, so I'm glad it was the way it was. Perhaps. But once again, I think that puts me in the correct mental framework to be as capable as possible. I'm not going to sit here and say, I wish my dad did something else. What's the point? That's asinine.
Both things can be true, though. I wanted to see my father more. I wish he was there, and he wasn't. And now I'm here, and I'm going to make the best of it. And this is the result of that. I've turned myself into this beast because of it. I mean, you made the most of the situation, but that doesn't discount the the place where you may have wanted more from him. You may have wanted more love, more connection, just more time.
I
with a little
think
boy.
my father did the best he knew how to do, and second, he did exactly what was necessary to make me the person I am
Would
today.
it be okay for you to be angry with your father?
No, absolutely not. It's
Why not?
disrespectful
Why not? Why?
because he's my father.
But I'm
And
not
you-
saying that you would have to confront him. I mean, obviously he's not here, but it's just like
That's selfish.
But if it's just a feeling,
Mm.
right? If it's just a feeling that wants to
It's
come.
ungratefulness.
Well, you're judging the feeling.
Yeah, I am.
Advertising lets you have a terrible product and still make money. It lets you
Who made me the man I am today,
Yeah.
who I, once again, never felt unloved by,
Right.
who tried his very best to raise me, who sacrificed for me to exist, who gave me my last name, who bestowed upon me the honors and principles and morals I live by today.
Yeah.
For me to be angry at him because he was busy some days would be brutally ungrateful. No, I'm not allowed. No, I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed that feeling. It's ungrateful. I refuse to accept it. I refuse to feel it. I truly believe I had the best father on earth. I truly believe it. I don't believe, even now, if I have sons, I don't talk about what children I have publicly. If I have sons or when I have sons or my sons I have, whichever one it is, they will get my time, sure. They will get my dedication, absolutely. But I have expectations of them because of their last name.
Right.
And they're going to have my time while we're working towards something fantastic. I'm not going to just sit around with my kids just for hours because they just deserve it. There's no participation trophies in the Tate household.
Right.
And
So this is interesting again. He's pretty much saying, hey, look, if I have sons, and he's saying he may have sons, may not, I'm not sure. But he's saying you have to earn your time with me pretty much. Like not every single time, but you need to be working towards something productive. There are standards. And if you're not upholding those standards, then I really don't want to spend time with you. And you know what? I can understand that. I can understand why somebody who is a high functioning person, has goals, is used to working towards something, even when it comes to their children, wouldn't want to spend as much time with them if they're not working towards something. Because I've experienced it in my own life. Like at a certain point in your life, let's say you grew up around a certain crowd, and this crowd, maybe they smoke and they drink and they're criminals or whatever, or they just do things that aren't in alignment with what you are doing now. But back in the day, you were chilling with them, you were cool. But at a certain point, you get to a certain level where if you engage with this, if you entertain this over here, it's going to take away all the things you're working for over here. I think the same can be true with when you have children. When you have children and you're used to functioning at a high level and doing certain things a certain way and not really wasting time and being effective and efficient, and then you have children and they're not working on anything and they just want you to sit around and play with them and things like that, that can be a difficult pill to swallow, right? That can be something difficult because you're not used to operating in that mindset. So I can totally understand where even if you love somebody, you can't really entertain or do certain things with them because it's just not how you operate. I don't think it makes you a bad person. I think that it just makes you you.
time is a trophy, and it must be earned, like everything else in life. So I'm not going to sit and have sons and go, well, he's my son, so we're just going to all day do fucking nothing. No, we're going to all day do something important, or I'm going to go do something important, and he can sit around and do nothing by himself.
For sure. But you can also imagine if you had something you saw them this year, that would have an impact.
Hey.
Like, how would you feel about that? If you had sons and you only saw them once a year?
I think I'd miss them, of course. They'd miss me.
I bet your dad missed you.
Oh, completely. Absolutely.
I bet he was sad there.
Oh, completely.
And I wonder if he had self-judgment about it. I wonder if he questioned himself.
Well, I think as a man,
Because would you do that?
well, as a man, you have to make a choice. And I think it used to be more binary than it is today because of the nature of money and empire and how things work. But as a man, you have to make a choice. You either go to war and come back with stories, or you sit at home all day and be a second mother, and then you're not a man. You have to find a balance between the two. My father was away a lot, but he wasn't away a lot because he was doing nothing. right? So if you have a soldier as a father, okay, he's not there, but he's doing something. He's
What are
gonna
y'all
write the story,
thoughts?
And I think that
If
was
you're
typically
watching
a
this,
lot
let me
less
know what
than
y'all's
very
thoughts
long
are.
time. Maybe it's changed a little bit in modern times, but typically the man went away, did whatever he had to do, and then came back with a story or a hunt or whatever. So that's how I saw my father living his life, and that's how I want to live my life. I will do the same thing. I don't think I would be the same man if I decided to say, okay, I have a son now, so I'm just going to stay at home. And I think that I need to be a kind of man my son wants to emulate, which means I have to be a hero. And I don't think you can be a hero sitting at home. So I think that I need to.
That's true.
Yeah, he needs time, of course he does, but he also needs an example set.
You have to be out there doing stuff.
Out there in the harsh, brutal realities of the real world. So yeah, it's time. Now the argument is quantity of time versus quality of time. And I would argue that the quality of time I will give my sons is going to be much higher than
You would want to give them.
Oh, completely.
You want to give your sons more quality time than you have with your.
I'll give him the exact same amount as he gave me.
Will you? If I'm happy, would you not want to give them more?
I may want to.
You wanted more.
I didn't say I wanted more. That's smart. I don't.
So this idea of earning your parents' time, that's an interesting one. That's super interesting because I never really thought about it, like earning your parents' time. But when I think back to even my childhood and, wanting my dad's time, usually I got his time when I was working on something. Hey, can you teach me how to play basketball? Hey, can you teach me this? Can you teach me that? I have a project. Can you help me with it? Right? There's more. I think that there's more to it than, I've heard people saying, because I've read some of the comments saying, parents that aren't involved are, bad parents. But I think there's a difference between being involved and just you operating from a certain mindset that there are standards. So I can get on board with that on a certain level.
I wanted more.
You did? Yeah.
No.
You must have.
No, I'm saying that
Who wants time with his daddy? How can it? I mean, it has to be true.
if I wanted, I could have worked anytime I wanted.
Well, are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I mean, when we go, I don't know if we need to read the tweet, but it's.
One thing, Snap Sports.
Pretty upset with him. So he was like, I'm not coming back here. I mean, it wasn't just about you, it was about your mother.
Oh, completely. And I think my father sacrificed his marriage for us boys.
Mm.
He sacrificed his marriage and his relationship with my mother to ensure that us boys were taught the way he believed we should be raised. My mom was very unhappy with certain things he did, but she insisted on doing anyway because he saw his legacy in us as more important than his marriage with my mother. But I'm not saying, look, if my son calls me and says, I'm really upset, I need to talk to you, I'm not going to say, no, you can't talk to me. I'm not psycho, right? I understand all of these things. I'm just saying, obviously, we're talking about a very general scenario. The general scenario is, I'm a man, I'm away at war, I come home with a story, or if I'm spending time with my son, I want to be building him as an individual. I believe that the mother does a lot of the day-to-day keeping the child alive, changing diapers, feeding them, etc. And the man is the one who instills a lot of the mindset.
Right.
And the man is the one who grows them in very important ways. And I think to do that, I need to be a man of genuine capability. And I would argue.
So that's an interesting point, that a father's role is different than a mother's. A mother's doing the more day-to-day, a father instilling the mindset, instilling the strength, the capability. So I can see from a certain perspective why, if you're spending time with your father, he may want to do certain things with you that your mother's not going to necessarily need to do in order to spend time with you. So if you're spending time with your father and he's somebody that's trying to build you and shape you into a man, and you want to play video games, I can see why he may not want to do that, right? And it sounds like that's what's going on in, Andrew Tate's situation. His dad was like, okay, look, you can get my time, but we need to be doing something that's building you, that's shaping you. I can understand that. And I can understand why having standards for your children may mean that you spend less time with them if they're not involved or doing something that's productive. You know, I think having more now than ever, having standards for your children is important, but also having standards for yourself. And I think that's a big issue in society today is we don't have standards anymore. Many people do not have standards for themselves. They just do not. Many people don't have goals. They don't have a vision for where they want to be. They say they want to make more money, but they don't know what amount that is or what it takes to actually get it. There are some people out there right now who, when they apply for a job online, they go to Indeed.com and they apply for a job online and they submit their resume. Their resume still has the email address they had when they were in high school. And it wouldn't be a problem if their email address wasn't bootycheeks34 at G, IES, like crazy stuff I've seen, right? Like, and I had this conversation with somebody once. I said, you're applying for jobs, but your email, look at your email. And this person was damn near homeless, right? They didn't have a job, they didn't have money, and they were trying to get a job. And I was speaking to them, and I looked at their resume, and their resume, the email address was like childish. It was something that a kid would say. And I said, this may be stopping you from getting a job. And their words to me were, if someone doesn't want to hire me because of my email address, then I don't want to work for them. If someone doesn't want to hire me because of my email address, I don't want to work for them. That was childish thinking to me, because your email address, they don't know you at this point, right? They don't know you. But what they do know is that you have this email address that doesn't seem very professional. And so that they're thinking, if you're not intelligent enough or you're not aware enough to understand how this may come off as unprofessional, then we don't want to hire you. We don't want to hire you, because when you get hired, you may not have that same you may have the same level of common sense and not know what else is acceptable and not acceptable. And so I think standards are important. I think standards are important in that if you truly want to succeed in life, you definitely need standards. All right, let's get back to it.
That the 2 hours a month or 2 hours a week or whatever I spent with my father, him being the man he was worth more than the 200 hours a month that most men spend with their fathers. That's why I am the man I am. So there'll be some fathers who sit and say, I could never do that to my son. Well, what can you do? You can go do fucking basically nothing with your life, pay your taxes, come home, be bitched at by your wife, be quiet about it, and be with your son all the time. Sure, you win in quantity of time, but who you are as a man and what the lessons you can really teach, you lose in quality of time. So I believe my father was such a fantastic figure that it's the quality of his time that made up for the quantity. And the only way to do that is to go out in the world and be fantastic. And we can actually extrapolate this out to other things. Let's look at relationships, for example.
Interesting.
I see men who spend every day with their woman. That's fantastic. That's fine. That's how he elicits her love.
Are you perfectionist?
I'm completely. That's how that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
I see men who spend every day with a woman, which is fantastic. He wants to, she wants to. That's great. They're happy. She feels loved and she feels respected and she's glad she has all of his time. When you reach a certain quality of man, a certain level of man in terms of competence, a certain echelon, I don't have to spend all day with her. I can see a woman 1 hour a month and she'll be with me because I'm me.
Interesting. All right. So I'm about to wrap this up. This was about like almost 2.5 hour interview. So if you liked what you saw, I would advise, or I would recommend you go watch the full interview so that you can really sit with some of these ideas. If you got any value from this, make sure you hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. We are at over 500 subscribers. I'm trying to hit that 1,000 mark. let's get to that 1,000 mark. Let's get to that 1,000 mark. So make sure you just support the channel, like this content. It goes out to other people that may like it. And I appreciate the support. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you.